Welcome to the For Real Though Show, the podcast with the purpose for the people. I'm your host, Christopher Keith. Yo, I know it's been a minute, right? Maybe a few minutes since we've been on with you, but very happy to be back. Welcome to the new season. Thank you for joining us. We got really excited, got a lot of new content for you lined up, a lot of great guests coming on. I think you guys are going to be excited about it. So, hey, thanks for joining us. As always, we're brought to you by Queso What, which we will talk about a little bit later. All right, a little bit later, we'll get to that. But in the meantime, before we get to our subject today, it's been on my heart for quite a while to publicly talk about Israel and what's going on over there in Israel and Palestine. Uh, since October, I guess it was 7th. I'm not sure which day it was, the 4th, the 7th, or something like that. But since the Hamas attack, I've wanted to get someone from the region to be a guest on this show. And I've had I've got some friends from the Middle East. And one in particular had agreed to come on, but understandably, she ended up declining because she's in fear for her life. And that's how hot it is out here. That's how hot it is out here for people of Arab descent in the midst of what in reality is genocide. So you know who you are, sister. I appreciate you. Thank you for considering. And as an ally, I'm going to do my part, to stand with you guys and just stand up for all people who are for, what's good, what's right, what's pure, you know, without the thuggery, without the bullshit. So I'm not going to go on a big tangent, but I will just say this. The end of the game, what we're seeing right now, is genocide. Make no mistake about it. It is genocide going on in Palestine. Since 1948, Palestinians have been moved off their land forcefully. They've been getting pressed further and further into the Gaza Strip, and if you know a little bit about where that area is, it's close to the water where they are now, and it's only a few of them left. A couple million now. And unfortunately, they're getting leveled. They're getting leveled, and the media is certainly not telling you that because they reported the way they reported is just 100% pro-Israel. Now, understand something. I'm not against Jews or Israelis or anything like that. I'm against Zionists. Okay, so there are two totally different things. A Zionist is a person who believes that all of Israel, all of the whole West Bank, Israel, and all of that should belong to Israelis. Zionists, they really are a terrorist organization, if you ask me, no different than Hamas. Okay. But when and however way you feel about that, one thing's for sure, you cannot have a two-state solution if one group controls all the resources, if one group controls whether you can eat, whether you have water, whether you have internet, whether you have lights, whether you can have weapons. Israel controls all of that, and they have been for decades and decades now. Palestinians have had their land repossessed, taken over. Literally, people moved out of their own homes. And ever since the Hamas attack, Palestine has just been getting leveled. And the media is certainly not going to help you see that because everything they say is for every attack, it's against Hamas. It's against Hamas. We blow up a hospital. It's Hamas. We blow up a refugee camp. We're going after Hamas. They're hiding in the refugee camp. They're hiding in the hospitals. They're everywhere. But these thousands and thousands and thousands of Palestinian people who have been killed, who have been murdered, who have been slaughtered, are not Hamas. Okay, that would be like You know, that would be like somebody blowing up a bunch of shit here because they looking for the KKK. So they go to the side, they go to Mississippi and blow up every white neighborhood or something, you know, because they're looking for the KKK. That's basically what they're doing, you know, in Israel. Um, and again, I've been so disgusted with the coverage because in America, anyway, you know, there are places where you can find uh, a real perspective of what's really going on. But this American media, you know, unfortunately, the Biden administration, everybody's just so on the Zionist tip. You know, Netanyahu, who's already said that he wants to get all the land. He's already said that publicly. It was just a land grab. You know, really, if you ask me, you know, Hamas did him a favor. You know what I mean? Hamas did him a favor. And you know, we can go into all of that security stuff. How'd you not know? Blah blah blah. But it's you know, it's really reminiscent of 9/11 in that you know things happen and then they give people an excuse to just go wild and out. Okay. Uh, and again, you know, just look at the media. You know, again, it was always they're fighting Hamas, they're fighting Hamas. But then we had some prisoners get exchanged, and what did they say? They said that American and Israeli hostages were being exchanged for Palestinian prisoners. See, language is very important. They didn't say Hamas prisoners. Now, mind you, they say they're at war with Hamas, but they didn't say they had Hamas prisoners. They said they had Hamas. I'm so yeah. They said they had Palestinian prisoners. Okay, and when I looked at a little bit of coverage this morning, I saw that just like Hamas released some women and some old women and some children, so did Israel. So that means that they were just gathering motherfuckers up. You know what I'm saying? They just gathering people up, ladies, children. Come on. I don't understand what the difference between a Hamas hostage and an Israeli hostage is. They both hostages. But again, words matter. Words matter, which is why you really have to pay attention to the language that's used. And I think another important part is in this is that all Jews are not for the slaughter of Palestinians. You got Jewish rabbis who are standing with Palestinians who have been hurt for it, who have spilled blood for it over there and over here in the United States for standing up for Palestine, for standing against Zionism. So I think it's important to note that. Just like, you know, the majority of Palestinians, again, are not members of Hamas. It's just ridiculous. So I think it's important. You know, it's important that those who stand for what's right are recognized on all sides. You know, no matter what your background is. You know, because at the end of the day, all of this, you know, nobody can determine where they were born, to whom they were born, to what people they belong to. And sad to say, I've seen a whole lot of bloodthirsty, barbaric people out there, you know, of the Jewish, of the I ain't gonna say Jewish faith. I say I'm gonna separate the Jews from the Zionists. Zionists, I've seen some bloodthirsty Zionists out there, like real talk. Uh, if you want, like, if you got Instagram and you want to check out, hey, check out Brother Sean King, Shaun King. Check out his Instagram, and you can just go back, man, for the last, you know, 45 days, and you'll be able to see a lot of the atrocities. Also, if you want to be hip on the history of Palestine, there's a book called The Years War by Rashid Khalidi. You can check that out. It's a very thorough historic document in terms of how we got to where we are in the Middle East in the first place. So, you know, again, I don't think that there can be a two-state solution. I don't think that there will be a two-state solution, nor do I believe that Israel wants a two-state solution. When I say Israel, I mean the government. Um, And again, how can you have a two-state solution if one entity controls all of your resources, tells you where you can go? Uh, I mean, this is really like this is some Jim Crow apartheid stuff. Uh, there are interviews all over where people could talk about that. Ta-Nehisi Coates, uh, he has interviews on there on YouTube. You can go check it out to where he was just in Palestine this year. And he'll tell you about, what he saw. There are other people who could tell you about what's really going on that's not going to be reported here. So, uh, I don't know what to say other than that. It's a really dire time. Uh, and I stand, I'm on record as standing with the Palestinian people who just want to live their lives, who want to have a safe place to live, who don't want to be bombed, who don't want to have their homes removed out from under them. I mean, again, you think I'm lying? Hey, even the Palestinians that have left, that have managed to get out, to go to Egypt, for instance, they're not allowed back in. All the Palestinians who have left, none of them are allowed back in. So that lets you know right there again that it's not about a two-state solution. The Israeli government wants it all. They want it all. Uh, and a lot of people don't want to say it. They don't want to get into it. I understand those, in corporate spaces that, hey, I get it. I get it. It doesn't mean that they're not doing their own thing. I don't fault them for it. People can do things behind the scenes. There's nothing wrong with that. Uh, as far as my platform goes, I can't be silent. I got to say something in solidarity with my brothers and sisters who, again, stand for what's right. So I'll leave that at that. All right. So today's subject matter is embracing conflict. Embracing conflict. Let that sink in a little bit. Embracing conflict. Now, when we say conflict, what are we talking about? Well, I got looked up a little definition online. There's several of them, if you will, depending on the context in which you're talking about. But let's just say, for the sake of this argument here, let's call it a clash or sharp disagreement as between ideals, interest, or purposes. Okay. Or you could also say mental struggle resulting from needs, drives, wishes, or demands that are in opposition or not compatible. But for the sake of here, we're gonna keep it on between ideals, interests, and purposes. Okay. Uh, but there are benefits. There are benefits to embracing conflict. One of them is it promotes understanding and eliminates misunderstanding. It strengthens resolve of relationships, solidifies standards, boundaries, and expectations. And the truth of the matter is, if you don't embrace the conflict, then the opposite kind of happens because you end up getting a lot of people have resentment. They think they have thoughts that they think that may or may not be true totally or what have you. So, but again, embracing conflict is good. It's actually something we do every day without even realizing it. When we get to that. So let's talk about why people avoid conflict. Number one, fear. Fear. Don't want to start any trouble. I remember working with an umpire early this year. He was a rookie, and he had a play where he said I was on the bases and he was behind the plate, and there was a play where the guy was going to first, and the catcher threw the ball towards first. I had a runner like toward on going from third to home, so that's the guy I'm watching. He's watching the guy going to first, and kid ended up taking the tumble at first. So he calls me over and he goes, "Hey, I'm pretty sure that kid kicked him. The first baseman kicked the runner as he was going by." And I said, "Okay, are you sure about that?" He said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." I said, "Because if that's the case, then the kid that kicked him, the first baseman, he's going to be ejected. I just need to know, are you sure? If you're sure that you saw that that's what he did and it was intentional, then I'll back you. And his statement to me was, well, I don't want to cause any trouble. And so I said, well, son, your job is to cause trouble. If enforcing the rules is causing trouble, then that's your job, is to uh, deal with the safety of the young people that are out here playing. So you just can't let anything happen to them because you don't want to make trouble, because you don't want to deal with conflict of the manager, the coaches, the parents, or what have you. So currently, because I didn't see it myself, we didn't end up doing anything about it, because he wasn't going to stand on the fact that he was sure about that's what he saw. And I told him, I said, hey, you're new, it's no problem, but I'm your partner. I got your back. We administrate this, to the T. I just need to have your commitment that that's what you saw. So then he bagged off of it. So that's something he'll have to learn, but you can't be in the officiating business and not want to deal with conflict or not want to start any trouble. You're just going to get run over, and nobody's going to have respect for that. So that's one reason why. Second reason, I'm sure there's plenty, but just a couple I jotted down. Not confident in maturity, character, or the listener rather. Okay, so like, say for instance, person can be afraid that the person's gonna gaslight it, like if you talk to somebody about something you know that they were wrong about, whatever, and then they're just gonna deny it, or they're gonna flip the script on you like you did something wrong. That happens. Sometimes people just aren't confident in their own ability to articulate stuff, and again, sometimes people they're just scared, you know what I mean? So they want to avoid, you know, it and just kind of, walk away and get along, go along, get along. I hope everything works out, for the better. So again, that's not a judgment. It's just the way things are, but it's something, again, we have to grow. We have to grow into, Um, and so another thing you have to understand though is that conflict is natural. It's natural, and it's something we deal with every day. And I'm gonna give you an example of this, especially when it talks about purpose. Okay, when you're talking about purpose, so just look at nature. Okay, now I have a front yard and a backyard, and I have to cut that grass. Me cutting the grass is actually a conflict to nature itself, because nature says that this grass is going to grow, right? It's going to rain. Got the grass seed in there. It's been in there for years, and it's going to grow. So when I cut the grass, that's in direct conflict with the flow of nature. Okay, to have this nice, well manicured lawn, right? So, but even after I cut it, and I sit out there, most people, when you cut your grass, you get kind of proud. You look at it, you're like, yeah, I like that. I like the way that looked. Feel proud. I had a guy tell me one time, he was like, yeah, man, your grass look like Murfield. And Murfield is a PGA course out here in Ohio, in Dublin, Ohio, where they had this tournament every year. Tiger been there several times for that. So, I had it nice and trim. It was looking like you could golf on the stuff, right? But even though it was cut that way, immediately after I cut it, it's already growing. It's already growing. So it's in conflict with me. Oh, no. You're going to try to cut me? That's fine. I'm going to grow. I'm going to continue to grow anyway, right? Put concrete on the ground. Guess what? If there's any foliage close by, it's going to go in there and grow, right? I had to get my sewer pipes, snaked out a couple times. And one thing that the guy told me was, hey, you get roots that go through steel pipes. They go through the pipe because it wants to survive. That water in there, if it can find just a touch of water, it's going to go all the way through that pipe, just like it go through concrete to survive. So Anytime that you have an upkeep of, anything, if you trim your hedges or whatever, that's conflict. It's conflict. It sounds, it may sound a little strange, but that's literally what it is. Uh, if you jump in the air, you're in conflict with the gravity. Okay. So it's just really just talking about going in a different direction. Uh, it's dealing with an alternative, even if it's temporary. Okay. And with people, obviously, it's a lot more complicated. So, you know, let's talk about personal and professional conflicts. Again, I'm a sports official, right? It's part of what I do, and resolve conflicts. Do all day, right? You're out there to adjudicate a game. You got to make calls. Like say if it's basketball, you got to travel, foul. If it's baseball, you call it strikes, outs, safe, and you're going to use your judgment, and people are going to fuss with you about it, right? It's conflict. Uh, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with that. A good coach, a good player, a person who wants to be informed. Hey, what did I do? What did I do? Uh, that's part of the process that they have to ask these questions, and you have to give it to them. Even if they don't like it. Sometimes they don't like it. I don't agree with you, or I think you missed it. Maybe you're right. But again, even if I thought I missed it, or even if I did miss it, and I say to myself I missed it, I may even tell them I missed it. It's not for me to run away and be like, oh, I can't do this no more. I messed up. No, man, you got to stay in there and hold tight and be able to deal with the conflict, right? Uh, you have conflicts with your friends, right? Sometimes, and I haven't had many conflicts with friends. You know what? Put it this way. There are certain friends that I've never really had a conflict with. Like when I say conflict, I mean an argument. I don't mean like an exchange of different ideas because all of my friends, we've exchanged different ideas. So there are levels of conflict, right? So if we argued about, you know, who colder, Anita Baker or Whitney Houston, or something like that, or who's the coldest, who's the nicest basketball player right now, blah, blah, blah. Why? Who's going to win the championship, that kind of thing, So if I got a different idea, then somebody's going to, give me their side of it, which is a conflict. So I'm saying it's not all negative. It's it's not all negative, but it's something that you have to navigate through every day. It's just perfectly natural. So when we start looking at conflict that way, then it's not so daunting, because again, even as you're moving forward, even as you walk forward, you're in conflict, with the forces around you that, will stop you from moving forward. You're using your extremities to again bypass space, right? Real estate, space from one side to the other side of wherever you're trying to get to, right? Push the gas on the car, push that gas pedal in your car, them pistons gonna get to turn and everything. Boom, power, there's force, it's conflict, right? It's conflict to the status quo. Okay. Conflict to the status quo. So again, different levels. Kind of going all over the place, but hopefully I'm making a little bit of sense. Spousal, if you got a partner in life, you're gonna have conflicts, right? Why? Because it's two totally different people, uh, two different backgrounds, ideas, ways of looking at life, levels of trauma that you've been through, things that you've seen that have shaped your ideas about life, about principles, your fight or flight situation, in terms of how you handle stress, right? All those things come into play as to why and how you're going to have conflict. And again, what I'm trying to do is take the fear out of conflict and take the stigma out of conflict to not be a good thing. It's a good thing. You know, uh, I can think going back to sports again. I can think about my football crew. You know, one time I had to keep the clock on the field because the clock operator kept messing up. So but and so we had some issues with the game and the clock, and my crew chief was getting frustrated, so I'm setting my watch and stuff to the clock, where we're supposed to be at. He's on the microphone. Chris, hurry up with the goddamn clock. What the fuck you waiting on? I'm like, God damn, Ryan, shut the fuck up. Hey, man, I'm over here setting it. Let me set the motherfucker. God damn. And he like, oh, okay. So it was a light thing, that's kind of what we do, like we talk shit, we cuss each other out a little bit, you know what I mean? But it's all in love, you know what I'm saying? Now, we was trying to get to this game, but because there's a level of respect there, we can say what we got to say, right? Uh, and it's not like you just go, like you taking this shit personal, but we're gonna get to that. There are rules and situations depending on who you can speak to, how you can speak to them, right? You got to know that. Uh, so, well, yeah, we get into that. Obviously, again, you talk to friends, conflict, blah blah blah. We're trying to get too deep, too into the woods, but just kind of surface level enough for you to get enough for you to get it. So let's talk about how to resolve conflict fruitfully. Fruitfully, uh, man, number one, and this is when I say resolve conflict, I mean between people. Okay, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your boys, and we're not talking again, we ain't talking about now, we're not talking about little things like who's better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James. We ain't talking about that right now. We're talking about like real straight up conflict, right? You get in an argument, you have a stern disagreement about a principle, what you're doing, where you're going. It could be at a job, it could be in a board meeting, it could be at home, it could be with your kids, this, that, and the other, right? Your homeboy, what happened? The first thing you should do in recognizing is recognize your true intentions in this conflict. What are your true intentions? I could say for me, consistently, very, very consistently, and this has always been in my nature, is that my intentions in resolving conflict are just to do that, resolve the conflict, and to have a mutual understanding. Not to have somebody agree with me or disagree with me per se, but just to have an understanding to where, excuse me, hopefully we can have a win-win. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I hope to have a win-win because I want to have an understanding, want to have a mutual respect for, what we're dealing with, talking about, et cetera, et cetera. And then, when you know your true intentions, then, you kind of predict the outcome. But it takes some self-awareness for that, right? Because again, I'm not interested in winning an argument. You and it could be some stuff I'm really passionate about. But at the end of the day, I never want the person I'm talking to feel less than, to feel less valuable, or like their opinion doesn't matter, or something like that. Now if we're talking about some bigotry or some stuff like that, well then, that may be on another level. Uh, where, again, if I feel a person is hateful or something like that, then, I ain't really concerned about the win-win. It's probably just best to walk away or say what you got to say, give them a nice F you and keep it moving. Okay. But again, let's say if you try to do this right, then you gotta recognize your true intentions. Some people just really want to win the argument. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've met people like that. I certainly know people like that, that they got ego involved, they got pride, they got insecurities, and they feel like they gotta win. You know what I mean? And so in order to win, they're gonna out talk you, they're gonna pivot, switch the conversation up, move the goalposts. You talking about apples, they're gonna start talking about oranges. You talking about lettuce, they're gonna start talking about tomatoes. You know what I mean? Uh, you bring up a situation of what's going on right here and right now. They're gonna talk about what happened last week. You know what I mean? That's just another form of gaslighting, pivoting. Uh, if you look on TV, man, and your politicians, they all about that. They love to do that. They love to pivot. You ask them one question and they pivot to some other shit. Well, you said blah 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 last week. Now you're saying this. What happened? Well, no, the American people, blah blah blah. They'll just change the whole shit. You like, he didn't even answer the goddamn question. You know, so I'm more of a win-win kind of guy. But whatever you are, you should just admit that, because if you just want to win the argument, then it's probably just best to admit that. You know what I mean? Because you're not gonna get nothing resolved, even if you quote unquote win the argument by shutting the person down or whatever it is you do. Did you really win? I mean, because 9 times out of 10, the person who you bullshit know that you bullshit them, especially if they got any common sense about it, you know, and that shit just ain't gonna last for so long, you know. So, hey, to each his own, but that's just me. But I think you have to come into this thing if you really want to resolve conflict on a square, then you have to come in as being an honest broker, right? You got to be an honest broker. The next thing you have to do is you have to decide on a set of facts, right? So if you're disagreeing about a thing, you got to decide on a certain set of facts. Uh, and facts these days, they can kind of be at a premium. You know what I mean? They kind of like staying at the Ritz Carlton, or the Waldorf Astoria. It ain't something you could just walk into, because uh a few years ago they started out with this thing called alternative facts. And a lot of times people don't want to discuss real facts. They want to start from fiction. They want to start from their imagination. They want to start from where they saw here or there or someplace like that. Uh, but you got to start with a set of facts. I remember talking to a friend of mine, and we were just talking about politics and stuff like that. And they said, well, I do my own research. I've talked to several people this, like, I do my own research. And, most of the time I could tell you, especially like when, we're talking about facts. Okay, if we both doing our own research, if we both doing research, then we should come away with the same set of facts, right? The sky is blue, right? That car is green, you know, stuff like that. What I find though is most of the time when people say I'm doing my own research, it's just really mean they on some bullshit. For real. I'm on this alternative fact stuff. I can't really justify what it is that I'm saying, as facts. So I'm just gonna say I do my own research, you know. Uh, but again, even as you do your own research, right, you have to vet your sources, right? You have to vet your resources, so you can decide on a set of facts. So if you both dealing with the same facts, then you can talk about how the best case scenario of resolving a thing, right? So if you're talking about the economy, if you're talking about jobs, or if you're talking about, issues of faith or whatever, right? Oh, well, I guess faith is maybe a bad example, because, you know, they didn't really got nothing to do with facts. So, but if you're talking about the subject matter, you talk about bills, you talk about, if you're in a household, you talk about what you're spending on things and this and the other. You have to start off with a set of facts that you could both agree on, that are facts, because facts are not discernible based on your opinion. Facts are not, something that they're not fluid, right? Facts are just facts. It's not fluid. They can't just get moved around, to be any type of way. Uh, Another thing you can't do, you don't want to both sides an issue. You know what I mean? You don't want to both sides of thing. Now you can talk about two sides of a coin. You can talk about two sides of an issue, but you don't want to be like both sides, right? Well, both people do that. Both sides do that. This, that, and the other. Because a lot of times, man, the shits ain't equal, right? The things that happened with Hamas and Israel were not equal. So Hamas, did some fucked up shit, in early October, when they attacked them people, uh, got them hostages, this, that, and the other. That was some fucked up shit. What Israel's done is way beyond who they've killed, who they've captured, who they've oppressed, who they've hurt, babies, mothers, fathers, elderly. it's like way the proportion ain't even the same. So you can't both sides that. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by that. You know, it starts with really being intellectually honest. Let's just be real about that. It's about being intellectually honest, and you do have to check your motives. You do have to check your motives, and just be honest about it. So I would just rather motherfucking don't waste my time and tell me, this is the way I feel. That's what it is. And okay, cool. You know what I mean? But if we're gonna talk about shit and deal with a thing, then there has to be, a certain amount of intellectual honesty. And it doesn't mean again, you don't necessarily have to fight nice. I mean, you have to fight fair. There's a way to fight fair. But part of that too is listening. You have to listen. You have to listen as much as you talk. And when you listen, you can't be thinking about what you're gonna say. You have to listen to understand, because you may get new information. And I've always been the kind of person that, hey, if you give me new information and I can vet that information and see that information is true, guess what? Your information is superior to my information. Hey, I'm going to take your information. If your information is in addition to what I knew and it's going to help me be better and have a better overall perspective, then that's what I want. That's what I want. But again, I ain't gonna say it takes courage. It just takes humility, you know, to, it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be right? That's your choice, right? Uh, some other rules. So you don't want to gaslight or pivot, right? If you're gonna do this thing, right? You don't want to gaslight or pivot. You don't want to cross those lines or make it personal, right? You want to watch what you say, especially if you're talking to, well, any if you in biz, you got to watch what you say and how you say it. Don't mean you can't speak truth to power, but you got to know your audience. You got to know, you got to know when there's an environment where you can get down and dirty and into the, jungle with your verbiage or whatever. And you got to know when you got to be really professional. You got to know when to say, this is the thing versus you are the thing. You know what I mean? You did this, you did that. Sometimes when you use a lot of yous, then people can tend to get turned off and get offended. So you have to be careful about that. Okay. So don't cross the lines, don't make it personal. And you gotta watch your mouth, right? If you're talking to your spouse or something like that, you don't want to just be saying crazy stuff to your spouse, because you ain't gonna be able to walk that back, right? So I'll be the first to say, a lot of times, hey, you can say a lot of you could do a lot of things to me, but what you say, that's gonna stick. That's gonna stick. How you say it, that's gonna stick, right? So you can tell your draws with some things you say. Okay. So as we tighten this up, I want to give you an example of a situation where two people conflict, because you can't, again, if you got respect, then you're not going to take it personal, right? You're not going to take it personal because you just want to get the win-win. So there's a theatrical performance that I'm going to show you that will give an illustration of how conflict, you can have conflict with a person and it really goes in, but there's a mutual respect and understanding. And I think we could all take a lesson from this. Uh, Shout out to my man Keelan Ritchie, because we both enjoy this scene very much. So we're gonna share this in for the sake of YouTube. This is a fair use issue for uh in terms of education. And so we're gonna share this right here. Check it out. This is Lean on Me for those who don't remember this movie.
You see this yet? You know, all of your shit comes down on my head.
Oh, Frank, look, this is...
Let me talk. It's like you're a big bird with radar, and I'm tired of getting hit.
Is this my fault?
This is nothing. I've got union lawyers threatening me, and there's talk of a walkout.
Well, let them. They're not teaching anything down there anyway.
Then it's your job to do something
about it. Not one
about
of them has a personal stake in that school, Frank. Not one.
The fire chief was just here. He says it's illegal to bar those doors. Mrs. Barrett is organizing a parents group to try to get you removed, since you insulted them at that meeting the other night when you suggested that they get off welfare.
Oh, I didn't mean
Because the fact is, quite a few of them need it.
Look, I wasn't talking to all of them, Frank. Now, look, you came and recruited me, man. You disappoint me, brother. You disappoint me.
The disappointment here is you.
Me?
Yes.
Look, you know who I am. You know me 30 years. You know what I would do. You know how
Nigga,
I
can
operate.
you keep quiet? The fact is, you're screwing up. You're alienating everybody. Look at you. You have no life. Your wife left you. I ought to walk out on you myself.
Go ahead. Bail hell on out.
But I said I would back you up.
That's what you said, Frank. That's what you said.
Brother, I will go through the fire with you. But you are not taking care of business. This shit you're pulling now, you're just going plain loco. Now, you suspend Darnell. What the hell was that?
Darnell is symptomatic of the disciplinary
He
problem
is
that we're having in
a
this entire
good,
system.
strong, young black teacher. So he dumped that desk right on top of your head. Well, right on. Good for him. You will reinstate that man, you hear? And then you fire Mrs. Elliott. Why? Because she didn't want to kiss your ass. Well, I wouldn't either. How about that?
Mrs. Elliott has an ego.
Yeah, well, you lost the best teacher we had. We couldn't get her back now if we wanted to.
I don't have time for Mrs. Elliott's problem.
Well, you better make time.
We are being crucified by a process that is turning blacks into a permanent underclass here, Frank. A permanent underclass. No, see, nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody. Mrs. Elliott's missionary zeal about Mozart has nothing to do with our problem. Nothing. What good is Mozart going to do a bunch of children who can't go out and get a job?
Joe, your personal battles are going to cost us the war. Worry about the test scores.
What the hell you think I'm worried about, Frank?
End of discussion. Debate is over. You will write a formal apology.
I will what?
A formal apology for your treatment of Mrs. Elliott and Darnell and for your vicious and thoughtless insult to the women of this community. You will kowtow. You will step and fetch.
Frank, if you think you can
Get
make me...
used to it. It's the way of the world. If you're so hot on discipline, then goddammit, start by accepting mine. Because contrary to popular opinion, I'm the head nigger in charge. Come on, let's get something to eat.
You really think you bad, don't you?
So, yo, that was dope, wasn't it? So you had an exchange of ideas. You had two people who were basically in the same business, right? Teaching school and trying to get kids, to be successful in a hard luck school, hard knock school. There's a power dynamic. If you understand Robert Gilliam's character, Frank is superior to Joe. So he's the one that has the authority over him. So, I would be careful in talking to your boss the way, the way Joe was talking to Frank. But they got a history, right? They got history. And so there's a lot of context and there's a lot of good stuff in there. They said what they had to say. They were very passionate about it. And they said some hard-hitting stuff on both sides. They both had their ideals on education and why Joe, he figured out why he should do what he been doing. It's a good movie, man. It's a good movie if you haven't checked it out yet. But yeah, Joe had his way and Frank was like, hey, I'm trying to keep this shit together while you over here blowing everybody up, being crazy as Joe. But and the beautiful thing about it at the end is like, man, it's like, hey, okay, we settled the shit. Somebody had to win out. In this case, there was an authority figure. So that's what won out. It was the authority figure who had the final say. So like he said, he the HNIC. So once that was determined, once that was done, okay, let's go break some bread together. Why? Because we still on the same squad. So there it is. So, and, just a little bit of conflict. I hope that you can embrace it and use it to help yourself grow, to help your communication skills. I hope that you will question your motives when you're dealing in conflict, that you are self-aware to know if your feelings are hurt, You know, again, these aren't judgments. It is what it is, right? But you have to be truthful with yourself so you can be truthful with others in how you handle your business. So let's see. All right. So hey, thanks for joining us. Again, we're brought to you by Queso What? If you're in the St. Louis area, you already know. You already know. You can get these quesos, man. They're gourmet. They're the best quesos in the country, if you ask me. Okay. And they got it all. The queso chicken, queso buffalo, queso burger, queso Philly. I've had all of these. Queso Caribbean, that's the one with the oxtails. Queso C, that's got salmon and shrimp in it. Queso jerk, Cajun and jambalaya. Ugh. Queso pizza, it's kind of like Emo's, the St. Louis thing. And of course, one of the newest items is the queso St. Paul. If you know, you know. So, yo, if you own that and you're in the St. Louis area, you need catering. Uh, hey, the cater businesses. Give them a call. Give Shantae a call. She'll come hook you up. The number is 314-341-7734. So, again, rate us, subscribe, hit that like button, share with your friends. We'll be back soon with some more content. Won't keep you waiting much longer like we did the last time. Thanks for being patient with us. You stay safe, stay kind. Peace.